Today on Team on Three Voices of the Game, we are joined by Coach Adam Levine, a city championship coach. This is a special guest. Coach Adam gave me my opportunity when I first got into club coaching. The show touches on that. We also talk about club coaching and high school coaching and just the lessons and kind of be open and honest with your staff and the expectations of your with your players and your parents. There's a lot of good information for new coaches and people that are interested in maybe probably starting a program. So I think you're going to really like this podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and hope you like this one. Thank you. Should we do it? Today we're joined by Coach Adam Levine on Team on Three Voices of the Game. How are you doing today, Coach?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here. It's funny that I'm hopping on a podcast of yours about coaching since we were did a radio show together like 18 years ago at Valley College.
At like
Talk,
7 a.m.
yeah, talking about sports and it's a cool little full circle moment. So,
Absolutely,
and I
absolutely.
just want to congratulate you on the success of your program. It's kind of another full circle moment. You know, we met when I was working at Balboa Park before I even started really coaching. You were an official. We became friends, and then years later, we kept in touch over the years. And then years later, you started, want to start coaching. I thought you'd be great and brought you into my program. And you eventually started your own, and it's completely the brand that I think you're great at. You know, bunch of kids, more than basketball. Everyone has a role, and make everyone feel important and part of the team. And it's just you walk in your gym and you feel that kind of family energy. And it's been awesome to see. So I'm happy it's the vision has paid off.
Absolutely. I really appreciate early on, Coach Adam brought me into actually coaching travel ball. I remember you were doing a tournament with your first travel program, Lights Out, and you called me up and said, I need an assistant. I'm not sure that there's going to be multiple teams. I might need you to just sit on the bench, warm them up, start a game, finish. And I remember being on the bench, but what I do remember about you is how you managed the parents and how you sort of managed, on the court, off the court. You had so many strong personalities, those parents on those things. We won't mention any names, but you
Yeah.
handled
And
them with grace and class. And even when they were sort of, you were a young coach.
I
And
was.
I really pulled from that as I run my program because in the end, it's really not about basketball when you take these teams on these big tournaments. You're sort of managing egos and all that what comes around in a program.
Yeah, it was kind of a different experience then. I gave parents roles. Parents were coaching a little bit more than they would, as I got older.
Yeah.
And parent coaching is always tough for a million reasons. They could be the best coach in the world. And if another parent is upset with playing time or something else, they're gonna blame the parent coach. Oh, he wants his or he or she wants his kid to play, and they have their own agenda and all that. So, I mean, I obviously parents want to be involved, and but over the years, I think there's a certain time where it's time to cut the cord and be a dad, be a mom, root for your kids, cheer, and let someone else coach your kid.
Absolutely. We'd like to start a show talking about your GOAT. Tell me about your GOAT.
I guess as a coach, my goat's Pete Carroll. And funny enough, it's the first day of football today. We're recording this and watching him on the Raiders at 73, the oldest coach in football. And you can never tell, by his energy and how passionate he is and his connection with the players. And it's just all the different intangibles of, just it's nothing about X's and O's, even though it's been cool to see Pete Carroll coach and him going for it and trick plays and all that. But I think what's been inspirational about him is just it's his he wants to put together a program of just good vibes, good energy, memorable experiences. And that's kind of what I've done as a coach over the years is I don't remember certain games when I played high school sports, but I remember the bus rides. I remember the trips we had. I remember the friendships and all that, and I think the culture is his biggest thing, and that's why he's my guy.
Absolutely. He's a great call. I want to ask you about a lesson you probably learned as a coach from one of your players through your coaching careers.
Yeah, that's a good question. This past year, I probably learned a lot. So as I mean, but maybe not everyone. I've been the head coach at Palisades for the last 7 years.
Seven
And
years.
I was
Wow.
there 7 years. I
I
know
remember when
it's
you got the job and then you won the
yeah.
champ. I mean, everything. Wow, 7
Yeah.
years.
So yeah, 7 years, and our basically our season was almost was put on hold, and I had 10 kids in my programs, house burned down,
Jeez.
and we didn't have a. I mean, kids were going to school. I mean, it was kind of like COVID vibes again, and online. Kids were going online school. We were guests at gyms almost every day, and but we made it happen. And I have one or two kids on the team that lost everything, and they they were the ones that were wanted to play the most. And it's kind of just a reminder and a lesson where you know basketball and sports and team being on a team is one of the best distractions. And it was a great distraction for our school, us and the boys. Like the kids weren't even going to school, but they would come to our games, because it was like a nice way to, see your friends and root for each other. So they were the ones that were really kind of energized me and kind of just pushed me like, let's make this happen. And you could tell they really wanted to play, and we made it happen. And it was almost a storybook ending. We were pretty much a missed layup from going to Sacramento this year.
Ooh,
And
bummer.
we well, it was a missed layup. We would have played Elko because we got dropped down a division. We beat them in the first round by like 20. And so if we won, we would have beat them. We would have played them. And so there's a good chance we would beat them. You never know. You still got to play the game. So it was almost a storybook year, but it was, I guess the other lesson was things are bigger than basketball. And I think what we're going to remember that year wasn't where we placed and certain games. It was the fact that we made our season happen, and we Brentwood and Crossroads and St. Monica and Birmingham, all these random schools reached out to us, and we played in their gym. We had our senior night at Intuit Dome. We just a ton of experiences, memories, helping the community out, and seeing the whole basketball community help us out. Coaches, players, other kids I've coached, parents, what do you guys need? Let us help you. And you see how small and tight knit the basketball community is.
Absolutely.
And coaching girls basketball, it's even a smaller community as well. And it was pretty cool.
Wow. What an incredible time that was. What core values drives your coaching philosophy?
Um, That's a good question. I think my main value is I want everyone to have a role and feel part of the team. And whether it's your best player or your worst player, or if you have a JV team or a fresh soft team, you have managers, just establishing a culture where everyone's rooting for each other. Everyone understands where they fit it on the team. There's room for growth, connection. So I guess I would say my biggest core value is just inclusiveness and strength in numbers. I love it. I love a team. It's been great coaching at Palisades. 3 teams, Frosh off, JV varsity, 12, 13 players on a team. People always ask me like, what's my philosophy of coaching? And I always say it depends on what I have. So I was at Crossroads. I had 6-man rotation. I had a slower center. I played, exclusive zone, and I never pressured. And then I go to Palisades, and all we do is press, press, press. And when I was at Milken coaching boys, we ran the Paul Westhead system where we were going to try to score 100 points a game. We want to trap, we want to run, we want to, sub in 5 in, 5 out. And it's not even because I'm in love with that system so much, but that's one of my favorite ways to coach, because you're really you're really taking advantage of having 12 players that you can count on. if you play a team that has one or two superstars, they're going to play the whole game and do everything. That's what I want to do. I want to have a team, in a perfect world of a bunch of solid kids. Obviously I've been blessed to coach some D1 kids and superstars, and it's been awesome. But I think I have more fun where it's not about one or two kids. It's about being able to play a bunch of kids and being able to do a lot of different things because you've developed kids from JV, frosh off, middle school kids, and you just got a lot of kids that can play. It makes practices more fun. When you have 10 good kids, you can go 5-on-5 at practice and get after it. And it's just like I said, the more kids in a program, I think the better the program is.
Absolutely. So coach, you've coached high school and club. What's the difference of success at the high school level versus success at the club level, in your experiences?
Well, I think in club, it shouldn't be about winning. Obviously, when I coach a game in club, I want to win if it's a close game. Don't get me wrong. If it's the last 2 minutes of the game, I'm doing everything I can to call timeouts and
Sure.
make adjustments and all that. But I'm club basketball to me is about a few things. It's about, well, high school level is about exposure. So you can't get exposed if you're not playing. And every other level of club basketball, it's about getting better. It's about creating an environment that's, fun for players and families. And to do that, you have to play everyone, hopefully I think my most successful clubs, whereas when I have an A and a B team, I have multiple teams. So if a kid's not good enough to play, I don't have to put him on a team where the coach is going to be in a bad position because they don't want to play the kid because they're just not as good as the level we're playing at. So, in club, I'm rotating the bench every few minutes, and some parents don't like that, and it is what it is because my philosophy in club is I want to get better. I want to be exposed. I want everyone to, have a good experience, and you got to play everyone, obviously if it's a close game, the last quarter, yeah, I'll run with the five that I think have the best chance to win the game. But yeah, it's to me, and even if you are competitive, I also think that a good club team shouldn't, if you're winning 60% of your games or more, you're doing a disservice to your kids because you're not getting better because you're playing, shittier talent, worse competition. And I think your job is to, like we said, get your kids better, and you got to do that by playing good comp. So if you're winning every game, you're doing a disservice to the kids. In high school, eventually, it's eventually come season, my job's to win games. And I have meetings with certain kids on my varsity team, like frosh off JV. The kids are going to play if they're good. If they make a team, they're going to play. And I'll give the coaches some rules of like, you got to play this kid certain amount of minutes if they're coming to practice, all that. But on my varsity team, I'll have meetings at the beginning of the year with kids, and I'll say, hey, in a close game, you might not play. I might play 8 or 9 kids. You're number 10 or 11 right now. Doesn't mean you can't get there. Doesn't mean things don't happen in the middle of the season. And the way I do my schedule is for every 1 or 2 games, I know I might have to tie in the rotation. I'll have a game where that kid will be able to play in game number 3, let's say. But I let a kid know, I'm like, is this going to be an issue? For 2 reasons. The parent comes to me and is pissed. I'm like, well, I already let your kid know. So you got to communicate with them. And, eventually we all, it stops, right? You're a D1 kid, you're not going to play. You decide, I don't want to play overseas, or I'm not good enough to play at the professional level. High school kids maybe can't, end up not playing in college. And, eventually, it is what it is. And, it's life lessons,
Absolutely. Is there a lesson, like a hard lesson you learn coaching that you sort of pull from, during your coaching experience?
Yeah, I would say, to be honest, is I used to be a psycho when I coached. You
Please
remember?
explain to explain.
Well, I was loud and obnoxious, and I would argue with officials all the time, and I would, just get on my kids a little bit more. And I think the lesson. So here's where I think things changed for me, and I learned, you need to be the calmer voice. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that once in a while you can't get excited and to motivate your kids. Maybe the kids know, well, Adam's pissed now, because he's usually not this way. So, it's not always I'm pissed, 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 pissed. And, they're not going to, nothing's going to change. Maybe I'm doing it to, like I said, to spark a team or whatever. But basically my first year at Palisades, we won the championship. And it's a first game of state playoffs, and we're playing Brentwood. And I used to coach at Brentwood. The head coach is one of my best friends.
Charles is great.
And on paper, they were better than us. They were a Southern Section team. They had a bunch of studs. And, in my head, I'm like, okay, well, we won the championship. Everything past state is gravy. It's like our goal. We reached our goal. Now let's enjoy the ride. And I think I had kids that were nervous, and I'm like, there's nothing to be nervous about. They should be nervous because they actually, even though I thought on paper they were better than us, they lost in like the semis of Southern Section. And so maybe lost in the finals. I forget. So, my whole speech in the pregame was they didn't reach our goal. We reached our goal. They should be the ones that are going to, be tense, not us. This is extra. Everything here is like, let's enjoy this ride. And I started to really coach differently, and I started to be a lot calmer. I was able to, I think I was able to coach better as a result, think better, communicate better. And so, I guess the lesson was, when everything's so tense, I don't think it's working. And I would say my number 2 thing I learned is have a good staff, and have assistant coaches that not only you trust, because trust is the number one thing. I would never post a job like online, to have a stranger. It would have to be someone I have a connection with, or someone close to me has a connection with, because A, they're working with kids, so you got to trust them for those reasons. And B, it's the assistant coach is going to be the one that's, if someone's complaining about you, kid, parent, whatever, they're complaining the assistant coach first. It's got to be someone you trust that has your back. And so when I was at Crossroads, I had 2 great coaches. They're 2 of my friends to this day, but they're both not basketball coaches anymore. And, they were, they're amazing teachers. But when I went to Palisades, I hired this guy named Don Burke. He was a head coach at St. Monica. He had way more experience than I did, even at the time. And when you have coaches that you can constructively argue with, as long as you're doing it in the right way, that's helping me be a better coach. There's a guy who, Jelani, he was assistant at Brentwood. We were on the bench. Coach. Yeah. We were on the bench together, and we would argue we'd strategize. I think we should do this. I think we should do this. But it made us a better coach. So when you have, I used to coach at Milken for boys with a guy named Coach Mike Whiting, and he's like a legend. He's in the Hall of Fame. And he would always tell me when I was a young assistant, a little shy, he's like, you got to tell me things. You got to make suggestions. The first 5 times I might say no, but that 6th time is going to win us the game. And that's where I wanted my assistant coaches. And so I think some coaches are scared to hire good coaches because maybe they feel threatened. Maybe they're whatever it is. But when you have coaches that you trust and that can challenge you, it makes you a better coach. And not only does it make you a better coach, but I think it makes you can connect with your players a little more. So I had 2 great assistant coaches the last couple of years. And so I would walk into practice sometimes. Okay, my practice plan. Okay, Don's doing a drill. My other assistant, Labrie's doing a drill. Now I can kind of walk around. Hey, Ellie, how's your day going? Ayla, what's new? And I used to not do that because I would have to do everything in practice. So I think that the staff is such a big deal. And I think as a club coach, and you run a big club program now, that's the bread and butter, having good coaches on your staff. I can never coach. I think you're like me. Like I can't coach 10 games in a day anymore. I used to do that with TVT, and I can't even fathom doing that anymore. I'm like, I was doing a disservice to the kids. You're not as focused. You're worn out. And so when I coach 1 or 2 games in a day, I'm, at the most now, I'm refreshed, I'm energized, I'm prepared. And but it's hard to find coaches. It's, it's not, you're not paying, no one's making a ton of money. It's evenings, weekends. It's hard to find coaches. So when you find the right coaches that fit your philosophy and fit your program and work, that makes your program, whether it's club or high school, better.
Absolutely. Coach, what do you see a lot of mistakes that younger coaches made, and what mistakes you probably made as a younger coach that you could go back and tell your younger self you could have done a little bit better? Was it just being a little loud and
Well, yeah, I see. Well, definitely that. And we already talked about that,
yeah,
just not being focused and too crazy. And, you're yelling and constant, and the kids don't know what to pick up from you. But I would say one of the big lessons I learned was, not doing too much. Okay. I would coach a sixth grade club team that's not very good, or a middle school team at a school, private school. And there's not much talent, and the kids haven't played much basketball. And I'm trying to run an offense that they don't even know certain concepts, or I'm running a deep, like I'm trying to run a press and they don't know how to match up in the half court setting. So I think I used to do too much, and you got to simplify it. Maybe you're coaching a club team, you only see the kids once or twice a week. There's only so much you can run, and only so much you can do. So I think over coaching, I was a mistake that I used to make.
absolutely. So I want to talk to you about your championship team. The year that I mean, tell me about that year. I remember you got the job right before the season. I remember hearing, and during that run, did you know this would team early on had a chance, or did they just sort of
So
grow as
yeah,
a group?
so my first year at Palisades, I knew it was talented, and so there's a dad who's really close to me still to this day, and then his family. His name is Mike Arnold, and I coached three of his kids, and they all played TVT for me too. So when the job was open, he was, hey, you should apply for it, and we'd love to have you, and maybe it'll work out. And so I knew the team. I knew the team, most of the kids in the program, and I knew there was a lot of talent, and I was excited. We we were young that first year, and so we won Division 1 that year. And so basically in city and southern section, the top 8 teams are open division, and then it's Division 1, 2, 3. So we were kind of borderline that year, open or Division 1. And to be honest, being in Division 1 probably was vital to my success, because maybe I lose in the first round of open, even though we need to do a better job of, even if you're an open select team and you lose in the first round, you should get a banner, for being one of the top 8 teams. You should get t-shirts, because you did do something that technically is better than a D1 or D2 championship, even though the rings are the same and you can sell it to your program as the same, but it is better. So, and I think that can avoid tanking and other things, anyway, because it should be a big deal. And so we won Division 1, and then we go to state playoffs. And like I said, we beat Brentwood. Everything was gravy after that. Then we go to San Diego, and we're a low seed that year. So we go to San Diego, we win. 2 days later, go back to San Diego, we win. Now we're in the state regional finals. We go to McFarland. Do you see the Kevin Costner movie, McFarland, USA, with
Yeah,
the
of
track?
course. Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's the whole town's at this game. It's the middle of nowhere. It's past Bakersfield. It's almost in Fresno. And we lose on a miss. It was an up and down game. We miss a box out and lose the game. We lose by 2. Heartbreaker. And so the next year, we think we're going to be really good. Everyone's coming back. Other city teams are graduating their studs. And my job with this year was, let's not F it up, and we did it. And we were awesome. We actually started out 1-6, because I knew we were going to be qualify through league and all that and be a high ranked team anyway. So we played everyone that year. We played Sierra Canyon. We played La Jolla Country Day. And, my whole point to the girls was, we are going to get our butts kicked sometimes, but it's playoffs in the city section will be easy after that. And everyone sort of bought in, and we were a high seed that year, and we won 4 home games in a row. We beat Santa Monica
Wow.
in the state regionals. And it was cool because our boys won a lower division, and but so they had a high seed, and we had back to back. And when you're back to back with the boys, it's so much cooler. The
Yep.
fans are great. We were
Jim's walking. Yeah.
selling out the gym, and so we finally, we were 2 points away from going to state this year. We reach our goal, and it's so exciting. And we're booking rooms, and the next day after we won was the Shams tweet, the NBA is canceled and everything is starting to be canceled. And there's this coronavirus and no one really knows what's going on. And the state championship got canceled and we didn't get to go that year.
Oh man.
So we won one more after, and that was a weird year because we weren't sure when we were going to start. That was the weird COVID year. Sometimes we played games where people weren't allowed in the gyms. It was so weird, but we made it work, and kind of like we were talking about with the Fires, being able to play sports was vital, and, figuring out when to do it. And I mean, I'll be honest, like once I had the parents' permission and I knew that's what they wanted. I mean, we played some games in the off season to get ready for our season in these like shady leagues, we were in, there's this, like Court and Carson. It's like the two little courts. Like it's like, it looks like it's in a warehouse.
Oh yeah.
Like we were playing these games there that like, everyone got in trouble if you were playing. But it was enough schools and kids that wanted to play and parents that wanted to play. And we were safe as we can be. And, to this day, looking back at it, I still think I gave the kids something to do, and so that was a great memory too. So, proud of what I did there, and a lot of great memories.
Coach, you were so instrumental, putting me into this travel world. I remember working for you, which I really appreciated, how you talked about the cooling off period after a game or a tournament, and sort of also talking about not having Monday practices. I remember when I worked for you. Talk to me about, after, you put it in place where after a big game or whatnot, and not allowing parents to talk to you or your staff after a game, how important that is for
Yeah, I mean, it's everyone's fired up after a game. Listen, after I coach a game, it's funny. My assistant coach always looks for my phone by the fourth quarter because they know I'm going to leave it there after the game. Like I lose balls. Like I'm in another world, in a close competitive game. And so, I don't think I'm at the mental capacity to have a conversation. Maybe I'm heated about the game. A parent's going to be heated even more because it's their kid. And, yes. If they think I wronged them or someone else wronged them, they're going to be pissed. So, I've gotten this from other coaches, 24-hour cooling period. And, I always say at my parent meeting at, the beginning of the year or my philosophy, forums, I always say, look, I will talk anytime about your kid, but when it's something that happened in a game, you're going to wait 24 hours and let's talk. Hopefully we're both cool down. Maybe we've thought about it. Maybe things have changed a little bit, but like I said, I'll always talk to parents, always talk to kids, but I need to wait a little bit. And I think the other mistake coaches make is too long after a tough game where you're reaming your kids. It's the kids have already had a tough game, right? You don't need to make it worse. And if you do think there's a lot of adjustments your program can make, okay. And, say one or two things and on a good note, and I'll see you guys tomorrow practice and we'll really talk about it. Because the other thing that happens while you're reaming your kids for 30 minutes in a tough game, now you have 30 parents that are just all kind of, pissed off too. And that's not a good combination either, So I think that's a big thing too, is if wait 24 hours if you're upset, and you want to talk to a coach or parent or whatever. But same thing with your kids. And on a good note, it was a tough game for everyone. You're not going to get through when everyone is so emotional. Wait for tomorrow practice.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, thank you so much for being on the show today. I can't wait to have you back. Love talking and chatting. Thank you for everything. Thank you for what you've done for me and our basketball community. Coach Adam also does incredible tournaments. And I can't wait to catch up with you real soon, Coach. Talk to you later.
Same here. Keep doing what you're doing.
Absolutely, buddy. Talk to you later.